What up? It's June 19th. I left the library not too long ago and walking down the street. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, so I'm going to go ahead and just reflect on what I read. So basically, starting off, I'm trying to make this real quick because I ain't got that much juice on my phone left over. Basically, yeah, you know, I started off, she was posting these little diary entries that she had. The first one was from November the 24th. All right. Now, overall, she basically was talking about, not just in this particular diary, but in the beginning of where I started out at, she was talking about how Aaron didn't really spend the holidays with them. So, like, when November came and Thanksgiving came, you know, he was gone that whole month prior to this. And he showed up 2 days after Thanksgiving, but, you know, he brought, like, some leftovers with him. And, of course, she made a note, you know, basically comparing herself to his mom. It felt like, you know, the mama's boy factor was kind of like overriding their relationship together because he'll listen to his mom more so. And so the first entry, which was the 24th, you know, she was basically just expressing herself as far as, like, how he wouldn't be there that much, this and that. Then she had another entry, which was November 30th after that. And she was saying, like, on the 29th of November, you know, they had like hopefully I don't get this date wrong. I think they had an argument. Anyway, it don't really matter. Basically, you know, he eventually made it back or whatever, but, you know, he made it back there to her house. But around February the 1st, you know, going forward, she was saying, like, they got into a really big fucking fight. And it was because she was snooping, I guess. Like, he left his email open when he came back, and then he left. And they had sex and all that type of shit before this, but he left his email open. So she got to reading his email, and he had left by the time she started reading it, but she found out that he was cheating on her again. And it was with some type of porno actress, a lady by the name of Felicia Fats. And she was supposed to have been like 300 pounds. And not only was they sending dirty messages back and forth, you know, it was pictures as well. Like she said, it was pictures of her getting fucked anally, as well as sticking her fist up her vagina or whatnot. And so she got real salty by this. She was hurt. She ended up calling one of her spiritual guides. She said it's a lady that she met in 2001, and her name was Deneen. This is a lady that was older than her, but also didn't have any kids. This is what Karrine was saying. So she called the lady, and the lady asked her some questions, making her reflect as far as, in other words, the lady asked Karrine some rhetorical questions. Karrine was a little thrown off at first, but she realized the point of the question was like, okay, in other words, you already knew what this guy was about. you know he's not really a keeper. There's no sense in getting mad at yourself and beating yourself up over this. Karrine was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's true. Not, you know, saying verbatim, but that's basically what it was. So she felt she took it upon herself to confront this guy. Now, based on Aaron's dismissive fucking attitude in prior situations, she knew she had to come up with a good reason to get him to come back. So when she got in contact with him, she made it seem like she had an emergency with her son, Naeem. So he was on his way back, and so she's sitting on the couch and she's trying to get her mind right? So he finally made it back, and you know, he asked, was Naeem okay? And she basically let him know that he was, but then that's when she confronted him about the email that she read. Now, when she did that, she said he had like a funny attitude, like he was kind of dismissive about it and smirking. And again, he got curt. And I don't even want to say curt. It just seemed like he got blunt, because she was like, well, you know, based on his response, you know, he wasn't responding the way that she thought he would. And so she was like, you know, is this the type of way that a married man should behave or whatnot? And he was like, yeah. And she's like, okay, you find this funny? He like, yeah. So, you know, they argue or whatever. But then later on, you know, they go into bed. And in the midst of them going to bed, she's still thinking about this. This is lingering in her head. And she couldn't let it go. So I think either she brought it up before she started fighting him, or she just immediately ran toward him and started hitting on him. When that happened, that's when they both physically started going at each other's. And so they hitting on each other's, but he took off his belt and then he started whooping on her. And he was saying, like, since you want to act like a child, I'm going to treat you like a child. So as he's beating on her with the belt, her son was hearing it because he was in the other room. So he went into a panic. So he walked into where they was at and was like, are you okay, mommy? He said, like, mommy, are you all right? She was like, yes, I'm okay. Go to bed, go to bed. So after Aaron got done whooping her ass, they both went to bed. This is fucking weird. She had her back turned toward him, so he's scooting closer to her, right? This is like right after the altercation, by the way. Keep that in mind. So he's scooting close to her, and he had a little hard on or whatever. So he started scooting toward her. Make a long story short, he started fucking her. She didn't really resist, but he fucked her. Then they went to sleep. Then the next day, they getting ready, right? Because her son had to go to school. So as they're getting ready, she got in her and Aaron was walking toward their cars. I'm assuming she got in her car first. And, whether she got in her car first or not, she said, like, he walked up to her and gave her a kiss on the forehead. But as far as, like, her son, Naeem, he was in the car with her. And they pulled out and they went separate directions. Now, she was saying in her book, as far as like her driveway and the way that her crib and all that is designed, she said it's like in the shape, as far as the driveway when you leave. She said it's like in the shape. It's on the hill, but it's in the shape of a horseshoe. Now, this part she didn't say, but this is what I'm thinking. As they leave in the opposite direction, she noticed that she didn't see his car pull out or leave out or hit the exit. So I'm thinking at this point, like, okay, so normally when they leave out like that and they go in separate cars, she usually see him leave out first. All right? And I guess it's like based on the direction that they would normally go. So she thought something was a little weird about that. But she continued to push out anyway, even though she wanted to, turn around in the midst of her taking her son to school. She wanted to turn around to see what was going on. So as she's taking her son Naeem to school, they started talking about what happened the night prior to that, and she reassured her son that everything was fine. They just had a little argument, but she also, in the book, made a note and recognized that she understood that her son knew that they was doing a little bit more than arguing. But anyway, she dropped him off at school, and because she still had this thought in her head, like, why the fuck did I not see Aaron pull out? She decided to go back to the crib. She goes back to the crib, right? She didn't see him there, but she eventually found out that her laptop was missing. So what had happened was he had took her laptop. She felt some type of way about this because, again, what she had discovered as far as like him cheating on her, but also she had other business that she was taking care of, like, in the midst of this whole situation, especially during 2008. Especially since 2008, I meant to say, she was working on some type of script for a TV show, like a translation of a third book, the Vixen Manuals. So she was working on that, and she had that information saved on her computer. Now, I can't remember exactly the way that she explained it, but in other words, even though he took her laptop, all that information was still safe, and she was able to retrieve it somehow. But as far as like, the back and forth between Aaron and this lady Felicia Fats, she had already printed that stuff out because she wanted to keep herself safe, and then also use all that shit as evidence, not just for a public image, but I think, not just as a public image, but also to file like an order of protection against him, to take it a legal route or whatnot. So when she finally got in contact with Aaron, he denied that he didn't deny that he took the laptop, but he didn't say that he took it just to hide the evidence that she came across. He claimed it was supposed to have been like a surprise because Valentine's Day was coming up. Remember, this whole little altercation between her and him happened February the 1st. So he was saying like, he was going to get the computer updated or the laptop updated. Of course, she really didn't buy into that. So They argued, and later on, after that, later on in the month, around February the 26th, he had sent her a message, and through a person or whatever. So I guess the mailman or whatever, but the person that sent this message, he had like a thing of flowers and an envelope in his hand. So she's looking at the flowers. She took the envelope, and when she opened it up, it was papers that Aaron had filed because he wanted the divorce. So he had went ahead and took that extra step and filed for divorce. Okay, she was salty behind this. So, this all, even though she was already kind of stressed out before this put her into a depression. Now, she said by the early stages of March, basically, that she had already lost a lot of weight, and she was like around 100 pounds, probably a little bit less than that. But that she had stopped eating as much, and she was doing a lot of drinking as far as alcohol and smoking cigarettes heavily. That's what she said. So she had a little buddy, right, that she had bought this ticket for, this plane ticket for, some guy named Tanner. Now, he had a little situation he was going through with his girlfriend or whatnot, or his significant other. I'm not sure if she said that was his wife, but some lady that he was with. So she had bought this ticket for him to come over. Now, when he came over, she said, like, they laughed together, they talked, they chilled or whatever, but they pretty much remained there in a home. Now, this is fucking funny, right? Because dude had stayed there up until mid-April. And the thing, the thing is, right, a little later during his stay, they had a little conversations, but she said, like, he got real argumentative. Like, they'll bring up random shit about history. Look, she said random historical facts, but he'll disagree violently whenever, he'll disagree, like, they'll go back and forth. Like, obviously they will have differences of opinion, but she was saying he'll get a little violent with it. Not physically violent, but just aggressive, I guess. So he slept in the guest room. Now, this is where I thought it was even more fucking funny, because it brought me in mind of a book that I read a long time ago, and something that I pointed out. She was saying, like, okay, in the guest room and I think the kitchen, but specifically the guest room, that's an important part. That's where Tanner slept at. She said a bird would be tapping on the fucking window, right? So I'm like, what the hell? So she goes on and said the bird would be tapping on the window. And then later on after that, the bird started tapping on her window and also the kitchen window. No, her window and her bathroom window. So I guess the first two windows would be the guest room and then the kitchen. Then later on, it'd be her room and then the bathroom, which is where she would be at as well. Pause right there. Now, YouTube, I'm thinking this shit is weird because I'm thinking about Carl Jung. I'm like, that shit sound like the Beatles. The whole thing about how he discovered synchronicity in his laws. He had a little patient. I put this in my essay, Metaphysical Addendum, but I'll go ahead and briefly go over it. He had a little patient, what I'm saying? She had little issues or whatever, and she kept telling him about this fucking dream that she had, and it always consists of a beetle, right? So he talking to this lady in his office one time, and then all of a sudden this beetle was tapping at the window. Then it clicked in Carl Jung's head instantly, because based on the significance of a beetle and what it meant, the beetle is supposed to have represented like spiritual growth in a sense. The lady felt like she wasn't completely whole as far as her approach to life. Like, she felt like she was overly rational, etc. So this beetle that was tapping on the fucking window was supposed to have been some type of sign that she needed to be a little bit more balanced or whatever. But he also refers to it as synchronicity. Now, I got a whole opinion about that. I'm not going to get into it. But it just brought me into the mind of that. So as I'm reading this, right, and she steady bringing up this fucking bird, I'm like, she trying to call dude that, on the East Coast, they use the term bird to refer to somebody as being a lame or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Bird or herb. So I'm like, why is she steady bringing up this fucking bird and relating it to dude? And then what made me say to myself, like, this is some type of subtle insult toward him, is because when he left, she said the bird no longer started tapping on the motherfucking windows and shit. So I'm like, okay, number one, she must know about this story with Carl Young, and number two, she must be referring to dude as the bird, because when she first brought this guy Tanner up in the book, it was all good. Like I say, she had paid for his ticket, and he was there for like a month and a half from March until like mid-April. But then like toward the end of his stay, I guess she got like a little irritated with him, especially with how he'll be so argumentative when she wouldn't agree with him on something, especially containing to some type of historical fact. So all of a sudden this bird and shit tapping on the window, and she kept relating that shit to him, first mentioning the bird tapping on the gas window and shit like that, but most importantly, the fact that when he left, the bird stopped tapping on their windows, period, whether it was the gas, the kitchen, the bathroom, or her window. So I'm like, shit, it sounds like she's being a little funny calling his ass a bird, which it just makes me think so much, like, okay, did she consider, like, okay, whoever the fuck will be reading my book in the future, will my audience catch this? You know, I don't know. But make a long story short, right, so he left mid-April. After that, Aaron came back into the picture, basically, right? And even though she had this conversation with this spiritual guy before that, you know, she still went ahead and took him back. And, damn. Okay, she took dude back. I ain't even going to front. If I can't remember everything off top, I'm just going to stop right there because I read a little further. Let me see. She took him back, and after she took him back, you know, they... Damn, let me see. Yeah. She took him back and everything was good. Now, this is mid-April. And when after she took dude back, he actually stayed there for like a whole month. He didn't like disappear or anything like that. And he was, you know, as far as like the family life situation that she was yearning for, you know, he played his part pretty good as far as that is concerned. I'm gonna stop right there because my phone is about to die. So I'm gonna continue reading tomorrow. Every time I make it to this library, I get like fucking 2 hours to sit down and read and shit. But today they was open a little longer, but you know, I left earlier than 9 o'clock. But yeah, that's basically where I'm at so far. So tomorrow I continue this. I'll say I probably got like 3 more blogs of this and I should be done with the book. Alright, it's June 19th. It's late as fuck and I got a long walk back. Alright.